When Jonathan Antoine first walked onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent in 2012, few could have predicted the powerful story that was about to unfold. At just 17 years old, he appeared nervous, shy, and unsure of himself. But the moment he opened his mouth to sing, the world was stunned. His extraordinary operatic voice drew comparisons to legends, and audiences instantly recognized they were witnessing a rare talent. Jonathan, performing alongside Charlotte Giaconelli, quickly became one of the most unforgettable contestants in the history of the show. But behind the voice that could shake concert halls was a teenager fighting battles few knew about. The journey that followed was filled with triumph, heartbreak, and transformation. After finishing as runners-up, Jonathan was thrust into the spotlight, navigating fame, record deals, and intense public attention. Along the way, he faced struggles with his health, weight, and mental well-being. Years later, he would open up about dark times when bullying and depression nearly drove him to give up completely. Yet through all of it, Jonathan's resilience and passion for music kept him moving forward. Now, more than a decade later, Jonathan Antoine's story is far from the typical talent show tale. It is one of growth, self-discovery, and a search for peace both on and off the stage. This is the real story of what happened to Jonathan Antoine after Britain's Got Talent. Jonathan Antoine's journey into the spotlight began in a way that seemed almost accidental, yet it changed the course of his life forever. Born in Essex in 1995, Jonathan had always loved music, but his shy nature often kept him away from the center of attention. Growing up, he was a target of relentless bullying, largely because of his weight and quiet personality. School was not a safe haven for him, and those years left scars that would follow him long after childhood. But despite the pain, Jonathan found solace in music. Singing became his refuge, a place where he could truly express himself without judgment. It was his voice, rich and powerful beyond his years, that would ultimately lead him toward his destiny. When Britain's Got Talent auditions came around in 2012, Jonathan was only 17 years old. Alongside his school friend Charlotte Giaconelli, he walked nervously onto the stage. Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, David Walliams, and Alicia Dixon were waiting, skeptical of the timid teenager standing before them. Jonathan's posture was slouched, his nerves visible, and even Charlotte seemed to reassure him as they introduced themselves. Many in the audience did not expect much from this pair, but the moment Jonathan began to sing Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion's The Prayer, everything changed. His operatic tenor voice filled the theater with a sound that left the judges and audience stunned. Within seconds, the skepticism turned into astonishment, and by the end of the performance, the crowd erupted into applause. That audition became one of the most memorable moments in the show's history. Clips of Jonathan and Charlotte's performance went viral, spreading across social media and gaining millions of views. Suddenly, Jonathan Antoine was no longer the shy teenager bullied at school. He was a national sensation. The press hailed him as the new Pavarotti, and the comparisons to great opera stars began immediately. For Jonathan, it was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Overnight, he had gone from obscurity to being one of the most talked about names in Britain. As the competition continued, Jonathan and Charlotte, known simply as Jonathan and Charlotte, quickly became fan favorites. Week after week, their voices blended in harmony, capturing hearts and commanding attention. They reached the finals, ultimately finishing in second place behind Ashley and Pudsey, the dancing dog act. Though they did not win the top prize, it hardly mattered. Their journey on the show had already made them household names, and opportunities began to pour in. Soon after, Jonathan and Charlotte were offered a $1 million record deal with Simon Cowell's label, Psycho Music. This was a dream come true, yet it also marked the beginning of an intense period of change in Jonathan's life. Suddenly, he was thrust into the music industry, navigating media interviews, photo shoots, and recording sessions. The once reserved teenager now had to face cameras, critics, and the pressure of expectations. While Charlotte seemed more comfortable with the attention, Jonathan often struggled to adapt. The weight of fame, combined with his insecurities, was heavy to carry. Despite the challenges, Jonathan and Charlotte released their debut album together in 2012, which was well received and showcased their remarkable vocal chemistry. A year later, they followed with a second album, Perhaps Love, further cementing their reputation as rising stars in classical crossover music. They toured, performed for international audiences, and gained a loyal fan base. For many, it seemed like the fairy tale was just beginning. Yet behind the smiles and applause, Jonathan was wrestling with doubts. Fame had not erased his struggles with self-image or the scars left by years of bullying. The sudden attention sometimes amplified those insecurities rather than healing them. And as the duo's career gained momentum, questions began to arise. Could Jonathan truly thrive in the spotlight, or would the pressure take its toll? As Jonathan Antoine's career moved forward, his talent and achievements were clear for the world to see, but behind the polished performances, there remained a man constantly battling inner storms. Fame had provided him opportunities, applause, and recognition, yet it had also magnified the struggles he had carried since childhood. Jonathan often spoke about the relentless bullying he endured while growing up, experiences that left him with deep emotional scars. Those memories never fully faded, and even as he stood on world stages, they haunted him in moments of doubt and self-criticism. One of Jonathan's most significant challenges was his relationship with food and weight. From a young age, he had used food as a source of comfort during painful times, and as he grew older, it became an ongoing battle. The public nature of his life made this even harder, with media outlets often commenting on his size rather than focusing solely on his artistry. For Jonathan, such attention was not only invasive, but also damaging, reinforcing insecurities that he had worked so hard to manage. Over time, he began to realize that his health needed attention not only for his career but for his own well-being. Determined to make a change, Jonathan started small steps toward a healthier lifestyle. He began walking regularly, sometimes reaching 10,000 steps a day, and adjusted his diet in manageable ways. The progress was gradual, but the difference was visible. As he lost weight, fans were stunned by his transformation, with many praising his dedication and discipline. Yet Jonathan was clear in emphasizing that his journey was not about conforming to outside expectations, but about finding a version of himself that felt sustainable and strong. He often reminded people that his health goals were about longevity and personal peace rather than image. Alongside his physical transformation, Jonathan also worked to manage his mental health. He was candid about his experiences with depression, describing moments when he felt hopeless and overwhelmed. During interviews, he admitted that before Britain's Got Talent, he had been close to giving up entirely, with suicidal thoughts clouding his days. The platform of the show, and the embrace of fans who saw him as an inspiration, gave him renewed purpose. Still, the battle was ongoing. Fame did not erase mental illness, and Jonathan knew he had to take active steps to protect his mind as much as his voice. A major turning point came in 2022, shortly after his 27th birthday, when Jonathan received an autism diagnosis. For him, the discovery was both surprising and illuminating. Suddenly, many of his past experiences made sense. The social struggles, the feelings of isolation, the intense focus on music as a safe outlet. Jonathan shared openly that the diagnosis reframed how he understood himself and allowed him to approach life with more compassion toward his own challenges. Instead of seeing himself as broken, he began to embrace the idea that his brain simply worked differently, and that his unique perspective was part of what made him the artist he was. Through it all, Jonathan maintained a close relationship with his fans, often using social media to share pieces of his journey. He spoke about the importance of kindness, the reality of setbacks, and the ongoing process of growth. Supporters admired his openness and found encouragement in his honesty, often expressing that his story gave them strength in facing their own difficulties. By exposing the struggles behind the spotlight, Jonathan reminded the world that success does not shield anyone from pain, and that true strength comes from persistence in the face of hardship. Jonathan Antoine had come far from the insecure teenager who once trembled on stage, but the path was far from smooth. His struggles with weight, mental health, and personal identity shaped not only his career, but also his humanity. They were not obstacles to hide, but chapters in a life that continued to unfold. The question remained, how would Jonathan use these hard-won lessons to shape the next stage of his journey? Today, more than a decade after his first appearance on Britain's Got Talent, Jonathan Antoine has become much more than the shy teenager once labeled the new Pavarotti. He has grown into a respected artist, a resilient survivor, and a voice for those who struggle silently. His journey reflects not only a career in music, but also a deeply human story of overcoming adversity and learning to embrace oneself fully. Jonathan's music remains at the center of his identity. With albums like Tenor and Believe, he proved that he could stand alongside the world's most celebrated classical singers. His performances continue to draw audiences who are captivated not just by the extraordinary power of his tenor, but by the emotional truth he conveys in every note. Fans often remark that when Jonathan sings, it feels as though he is pouring his soul into the music, channeling his own struggles and triumphs into something that resonates universally. Beyond his voice, Jonathan has used his platform to inspire others with honesty and vulnerability. His openness about mental health, bullying, and personal battles has created a bond with audiences that extends far beyond the stage. Many fans see him not only as a singer, but as a role model who shows that it is possible to face life's darkest moments and still find a path toward light. By sharing his story, Jonathan has helped reduce stigma around issues like depression and autism, encouraging countless individuals to seek understanding and compassion. Jonathan's personal transformation has also been a source of hope. His journey toward better health has demonstrated that change is possible through persistence and self-care. He continues to emphasize that his lifestyle changes are not about chasing perfection, but about living a life that feels sustainable and balanced. For his supporters, this message carries as much weight as his music, reminding them that success is not about appearance, but about well-being and authenticity. As Jonathan looks toward the future, his legacy is still unfolding. He continues to record, perform, and explore new artistic directions, but his impact is already undeniable. What makes his story so remarkable is not simply his talent, but the way he has turned personal pain into a source of connection and healing. He has shown that even when life feels unbearable, there can be hope in pursuing one's passion and sharing it with the world. While many talent show contestants fade from memory, Jonathan Antoine remains a figure of lasting significance. His voice has taken him far, but it is his resilience and humanity that truly define him. From a bullied teenager on a reality show stage to a celebrated artist with international acclaim, Jonathan's journey is proof that greatness is not only about winning competitions or topping charts. It is about finding one's place in the world and embracing it fully. The story of Jonathan Antoine is still being written, and each new performance adds another chapter. But if his past is any indication, the future will hold both challenges and triumphs, each shaping him into an even more extraordinary artist and individual. What really happened to Jonathan Antoine after Britain's Got Talent is not a tale of fleeting fame, but one of growth, perseverance, and enduring hope. He stands today not only as a world-class tenor, but as a reminder that even the most unlikely voices can rise above the noise and inspire millions.